Count me in. No, I'm kidding. Oh, Scott's here.
Hi,
Hello,
Scott.
Scott.
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hey, sorry I'm late. I went to VR first.
Me too.
Exactly.
Yeah, could somebody just DM or tag Ruka because it's very possible, or actually just if you can look because she might not. If she's in headset, she's not checking her messages.
Let me check the website. Um,
If she's in VR, somebody might need to go in there and grab her. Is anybody
um,
friended to her except me?
yeah, I have her as a friend.
Yeah, she might have also forgotten or something. I don't know, but it's all good. Okay, so stream has started, I'm guessing.
I don't see a stream, but
Oh,
I
On
don't see
YouTube?
Ruka online either.
okay. So stream has started on YouTube. We're all very confused.
Yep,
Oh,
stream
where
is.
where do I go on to YouTube? I'll just
Oh,
look up the Bridgemakers YouTube.
yeah, yeah.
The perfect start.
The perfect start. So I guess I'll intro. So
I can
welcome
put
to
the link. Oh, sorry.
yeah, yeah. Welcome to the Festival of Confusion. I'm also confused about what festival we're in. Um, and yeah, we are meeting on stage because this whole month that we're already partly in is confusing for me at least on so many levels. And so we're staying away from running by the pool right now and just um, sitting next to it and talking about confusion. We're not going to add substance use to our confusion, which is immersive reality.
That would be
Um,
interesting.
I do admin autopilot so much. I started doing it on stream. Now I'm thinking, I probably shouldn't.
oh yeah, exactly. It's really easy to click around on Discord. Yeah, same here
Almost
actually.
easy.
Um, so yeah, I'm Heyu or Dr. Diaz, and accompanying me on our confusion journey are a few of our team members. So we've got Marivio, core leader, and Forfredor and Scott, who are both helpers. So thanks for being here, everybody. So this is the best emotion to talk about because I can really come with zero preparation and it actually works out better. Uh, one of the things I've learned around confusion because of the nature of the profession that I ended up specializing in is that the more I thought I knew many times in a power up position, like being a therapist or a social worker or an administrator in different roles I've had, the more sure that I am about something, the less sure somebody else feels. And the more kind of anxious and shut down and whatever. And so I had to learn pretty early on how to like actually grow my own confusion and my not knowing in order to make space for people to grow and know their own truths. Um, and so it it was an interesting visual in my mind where I would have to almost like bring the darkness into my mind space and like turn off all the lights and feel a little bit lost. And so I'm kind of dusting off that ritual inside of me right now and yet if I turn all the lights out then I'm just terrified, right? Like we don't want to lose track of our name or core parts of us.
Well, that's interesting.
um yeah, what's interesting about it?
So, if you keep deepening into that, you end up into terrified rather than into shame.
Good noticing. Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, I mean, it depends on the metaphor, the scenario, right? Is like, is the space that I'm in a place where I could encounter danger in my confusion versus like
Right.
in a role as a therapist, if I've set the container and I know the room I'm in and I know the wider organization that's around me, um, I wouldn't be so terrified. This is a new
Mm.
one for me to be leading an event uh, on Discord without eyes on any of you, practicing both holding a space and being confused. I don't know that I've done this one before. And yeah, I'm here to learn about confusion. And what I invite you all to pay attention to is if you had a little dial, almost like a light dimmer inside you, how do you turn that awareness up and how do you turn it down? What if what if we had some level of control or direction or flow with confusion at all times and we've just never learned that? Um, and how does confusion happen? Like, where does it come from?
I'm thinking again about I mentioned Star Trek a bit before stream, how between the first few minutes and the standard intro sequence, they leave you with a state of confusion because there's always some kind of mystery uh, going on. There's something afoot. And
Mm.
when you talk about that, I'm picturing Picard's face, this frown, and I'm thinking he's in a position of responsibility here.
Mm.
Like it's his responsibility whether something goes right or wrong with the
Mm.
ship. And so when something with stakes happens that he's not sure why, he's in a state of confusion because
Mhm.
um, he's responsible for what happens.
Mhm. Hmm.
So that's.
So there's the pressure of holding that ship, that container,
Mm-hmm.
and the word responsibility is like I am able to respond to this, but if I don't know what this is, then I'm just hoping to respond to it or believe I should.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, yeah, I remember Scrunched Up Faces by captains in any Star Trek shows, or technically Firefly too. All the
Hmm.
leaders always seem to be trying to think about the next problem before it comes. So maybe more worried than confusion at times. But yeah, there's there's another question around confusion, which is what are antidotes to confusion?
Hmm. That's an interesting one.
I'm gonna let.
Seeking answers might solve the problem, but if it's not something where you have access to that, that can be frustrating.
Mm, hmm. Appreciating the frustration emotion word. Yeah, so confusing could lead to some curiosity, but if that's in not being satisfied, then it goes into frustration.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. I'm gonna share my screen here, which may be confusing for some of you, but you can learn more about confusion. This is what I am staring at right now. Um,
Oh.
yeah. So I've been staring at this a lot lately because I've been mad scientist working on it for like
Ooh.
50 plus hours in the last week.
Oh, it's this one. Hmm.
Yeah. So we've got the paired emotions. And for those that aren't aware of what this is a kind of program that shows the different levels of emotions that can be connected to conflict. And it's an unlisted page on our website right now because it's still so young, so early.
Hmm.
But um yeah, I've been getting to really watch if we think about this little orb here as our own consciousness, kind of the ebb and flow of how we feel uncomfortable emotions, how they sit inside of us. And it's obviously orbiting off into the ether there. Still some bugs. But yeah, what's it like to look at
Mm.
this core engine kind of piece behind why we're talking about confusion today? Why do we need to talk about confusion?
Mm. I've found that I've understood the concept better when I look at the entire sort of vicarious axis, the way
Mm,
that confusion flows into guilt and shame makes me tune into a different type of confusion that's
mhm,
more about like a numbness of, oh, I just saw a conflict in front of me. I don't understand why it's happening. I'm just like out of sync. I'm not tuned into the situation and I'm confused. And
mhm,
knowing that it's a particular kind of confusion that when escalating uh, grows into guilt and shame. It's
mhm,
I think sometimes there's a big difference between like, oh, it's okay that it's confusing. Like I'm learning a new textbook. I'm learning a new subject matter for like a science project. But when it's like
mhm,
a social situation, the confusion is like I'm grasping at, like what our brain tries to do, tries to understand what's going on around it. But social situations are such a different beast. There isn't like a manual or examples to follow or lessons to learn. It's just things are just happening, and your brain never really latches onto a solid single explanation for what just happened. So it's sort of like the beginning of a situation where, as like a bystander, you're witnessing something unfold amongst a relationship in front of you of two different people, or maybe a group of people, and it's not clear what's going on, and you're not a part of it. And your brain's trying to figure out what's going on.
mm, mhm, hmm. Yeah, I appreciate you recognizing the roots in confusion is
Mm,
often with the high pressure, high speed world we're in.
yeah.
It's like you're already in guilt as soon as you're feeling confusion. I am, like,
Mm.
oh no, I
Oh
did
yeah, like
this
you
wrong.
should
I
know
don't
this.
understand
Yeah.
it because of that perception that we all have some level
Mm.
of instant access to knowing everything, especially now. I
Hmm.
pity I pity the youth of this age because there's not a sense of clarity that like confusion is an important part of the learning process
Mhm.
that has kind of dissolved out of our
Mm.
zeitgeist.
Yeah, and I was gonna say real quick, I am privy to previous iterations of the model, and I think you had been working out different labels for this portion of the quadrant. And I think it was like a numbness emotion
Mm,
at one point
mhm.
before you changed it into confusion, which
Yeah.
feels like there's a relationship there that's not explicitly on the model right now, but it's been iterated on. And this
Hmm.
emotion is a confusing one to put down into words. So,
Hmm. Yeah, that's, I mean, it really is kind of like as an emotion, it's like a, what do you feel? I don't know. Okay, you're there,
Mhm.
right? Like it's it's the question mark space that maybe doesn't have a question anymore to it. And yeah, Scott, how's your confusion levels?
Yes, it's not something I've pontificated about a lot, so I'm sort of like thinking on the fly here, and
Mhm.
the first thing that came up for me is confusion is very stressful for me.
Mhm.
Mm.
Um, Not knowing what's going to happen like usually leads to harm in my
Mhm.
experience,
Yeah.
and I haven't felt like I could afford to pause, but the more I think about it, I think pausing is like a good antidote to confusion. It's like
Mm.
sitting
Mm.
still for a moment and being like, how do I sort of ground through this
Mhm.
situation?
Mhm. I love that, especially because this is something not a lot of people have seen, but oh, it's interesting. My computer's getting hot and it's kind of stalling out. I think I've had it on pause a long time. We're already testing. Um, Let me see if I don't know why they're not loading. But in that orientation steps, if it's working, um, yeah, they're gone. But this green one is supposed to be hold and pause. Like, how do we how do we change the pace and the rhythm?
Mm.
Because a lot of times confusion can be a place of overwhelm, um, with too much data and not enough time to process it. And so it's just a flood on the system.
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's interesting. And sometimes, like, especially when in programming, trying to debug a bug,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of confusion involved because there's so much data that could be relevant and you're not sure if it is or not. It's
Mm-hmm.
just too much to look through all of it. That,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. When I think Scott, you sent me or you sent us a screenshot of some of the stuff that you do at work, like as far as, you know, reading through tons and tons of numbers and unintelligible to me letters. And I felt a kind of horror and confusion for you of going, my eyes would just start to melt if I was doing that all the time. How are you surviving that? Um,
Yeah,
and
we
I
have.
hear,
Oh, sorry.
go, no, you go.
um, it's even in the process of like reading through that sort of wall of information to find the issue. Um, the research tools that are available to help with understanding what is wrong are also confusing.
Mm-hmm.
um, we have this kind of portal, um,
Mm-hmm.
and I like to call it information pasta,
Mm-hmm.
um, because it's like whoever is just motivated to put information in there is able to, which is like both a good and a bad thing.
Mm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of the rabbit holes like you try to go down to find in there end up sort of making the problem even more confusing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's a lot of workplace confusion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. What what is the healthy level of confusion? How do we know that confusion is working well inside of us?
Is that possible?
Right? Is confusion never healthy?
I
Or
think what you mentioned earlier is if it opens pathways to curiosity,
mm,
because not knowing is sort of like the precursor of
Mm,
curiosity, isn't it?
mm-hmm.
that's a good
Yeah.
point.
There's a,
Yeah.
there's
Good.
a, I'm thinking about words that denote confusion, and one is what.
Mm.
And
What? What did you just say?
the moving from confusion to curiosity, I'd say the word is huh or
Mm.
huh.
Mhm. Mhm.
Something clicks.
Mm.
So what I love about what you're saying there, Mary, is recognizing the vibrations and the nonverbals and how we use tones
Mm.
to almost subtly communicate to each other how much patience, how much time, how much
Mm.
genuine interest we have in what's happening. And so back to what you were saying, Scott, about the pause, right? That like I use the tone as a place to almost flag for myself that there's a kink somewhere in what's going on. And so, but it's
I
also a
love
way
that
to
too.
signal, it's a way to signal to other people that like we've got to slow down for a moment. Like, huh. And then as a leader, what I'll do is I feel like I put a little tab there by making that sound. And then I just observe. I just watch. I just listen to see how much I got personally triggered by something and I'm in confusion because I need to do some kind of integration or reflection separate from a group moment if that's where that's showing up versus like um, this could also, even if I am personally triggered, it could also indicate something else is happening in the room or with the information being offered. And so this is a place where I'm learning how to trust myself and also trust the field, the environment that we're in, that something has shifted. And that freeze response in a mild way can actually help me move into that place of holding or pausing and not accelerating.
Interesting, because confusion can come from distrust.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the precursor sometimes, right?
Mm.
Can come from distrust or just I haven't trusted enough things that I look at trust very practically like a truss in a building, an archway.
Mm.
Um, it's a link to something that I have an assumed relationship with. Like I know that rhythm, I know that data point, and so just by knowing it, I'm trusting it to some degree, even if I'm trusting that it's not something I should lean on.
Mm.
Um, but then if I'm actually I trusted it too much. I didn't have enough data points and I leaned on it and I fell, something happened. That's where my confusion can kind of, I think about it like little, less dramatic than a broken limb, but like
Mm.
how swelling in our body will freeze a part of us that maybe is a bit injured. It'll bring our attention there. And so sometimes my distrust comes after I over trusted, and my confusion is flagging for me that this is where I over trusted before. So now I
Mm.
get to feel scrambled instead of running forward and re over trusting and breaking something even more.
Mm.
I feel like that's important for me, um, in something that I'm like realizing I'm working on, is trusting that confusion is not always bad. Um,
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
often feel really stressed if I get confused. But like the moments before, like somebody drops a surprise party on you or something, are often like confusing,
Mm-hmm.
and but it's not
Mm-hmm.
leading to something harmful.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
so I think the more that you can I guess that helps substantiate the pause, right? Because if you pause, you
Mhm,
can be like, hang on a second, like I can trust that this might not be bad.
mhm. That's exactly it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm noticing an interesting pattern that the confusion and the bystander access is almost sort of like there is some sort of it's almost like an internal judgment in a way where it's like you're
Mm,
confused and you're like, I should know this, or
Mm.
oh, why
mhm,
didn't I know this, or
mhm,
this thing caught me off guard. I'm confused. This shouldn't have happened.
mhm.
And I'm noticing that the spiral or the twist that it goes back and forth between the hero and the bystander, that the
Mm.
hero has a lot of judgment, usually
Yeah,
outward towards a different
yeah,
person. Whereas like
exactly.
this axis is like internal. It's like, oh, I'm, confused about what went wrong inside. Why did this, why am I feeling this way in this situation? You know,
Mhm.
an accident
Yep,
happened. I shouldn't be this way, but I don't understand why I am feeling a certain way, so on and so forth.
yeah. I I'm so glad you're bringing that up, like that that freeze place where we kind of internalize the
Mm,
energy instead of externalizing it. And so then the question is, how do we move between that externalization of, I'm not confused, this is just a really chaotic situation and I'm
mhm.
concerned about it,
Like learning Blender.
versus, yeah, exactly, versus
Mm.
confusion is going, this all probably makes sense, but I'm I'm getting it wrong. I'm not putting the pieces together correct. So
Mm,
it's on me versus it's on the world around me. It's on the field.
mm,
When Scott was saying confusion means danger, that makes sense, Scott. Like me too. I came from a world where that was true. And um, I remember once dating a physician who would have these emergency room rotations and would come out of, a 20-hour shift very blurry eyed and couldn't even, put a sentence together, very confused. And over time, I would start to hear some of the stories of what went down in the ER. And
mm,
despite the TV shows that make it kind of look like there's a lot of synchronicity, at least according to what the pictures he painted for me, there's a lot of confusion in the ER.
mm.
And these physicians are trained to just like memorize equations, memorize algorithms, memorize
Yeah.
like
If this
data.
symptom, treat this way.
Yeah. And so what that does, especially when they're under a lot of pressure or really sleep deprived, is they just, instead of trying to look at everything and understand how it all fits together, they're just following a linear pathway through, let's not get sued and let's try to help this person.
Mm,
Um, and so
Mm.
getting to feel that in somebody's nervous system and watch them go through that over and over again, just like existing in absolute confusion and at the same time being put into a hero role by everybody else. So, or
mm,
villain if they didn't feel like they're getting their need met. But, for him, he felt the least heroic of anybody. He felt like a total fraud. And when I spent time with his colleagues on vacations, very few of those for poor doctors, they also, would admit that like they didn't feel like they knew what they were doing at all, and they wondered if it would ever not feel like that. And so
mm,
getting to be behind the scenes of the people that we kind of assume, well, you're so smart, you became a doctor, you must know so many things that like I can't even know to save my own life, but you know the things that could save my life. And what the actual emotion is that's happening for them many times is not confidence, it's not certainty. It's moving between confusion and almost like absurdity.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
partly just because of the sleep deprivation and the intensity of what that training is like. So yeah, it's a it's an amazing thing to see and feel confusion just like embedded in one's body, and then put a white coat on that person and ta-da, they're a doctor, you know. Like it doesn't it doesn't translate. It really solidified for me that heroes do not feel like heroes almost ever.
Mm.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, it's like concern is this loop right before you can go back and forth between concern and confusion where you feel like, should I do something? Or wait, what's going on? Wait, should I do something?
Mhm.
Wait, what's going on?
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
Which I think works
And
pretty well.
another concern confusion loop I'm thinking of is like the phrase, "Are you okay?"
Mhm.
Yes,
Mhm.
perfect.
It's like both just circling between them.
Yeah, that's such a good way to put it, because that statement, "Are you okay?" tells anybody, if I'm asking that statement, what I'm hoping the answer is.
Mm,
But it also is it's a little bit like a therapist handing a Kleenex box to somebody who starts crying in their office. It is a comforting thing, but it's also a shutdown thing.
mm,
I find a lot of times when someone asks, "Are you okay?" It's like I'm not I'm not offering to help. I just need you to be
Hmm.
okay because you're making me
Yeah,
uncomfortable.
that's it.
mm,
That's a
Many
good
times,
point. Yeah.
it's a statement of, "Are you losing it?" And I should be worried about like what else is going to happen here because you're going to lose your shit, kind of thing.
mm,
And people don't think about that when they say, "Are you okay?" Many times the feeling inside when they're saying it is sincerely caring, but there's a judgment embedded in it, and there's an expectation of you should be okay.
Yeah, like if you're not going to
Mm.
bring your okay self to
Yeah,
our connection,
you should
then
be.
perhaps
Yeah,
I need to reevaluate. I
exactly.
feel like that's
There,
what is underneath.
our
Are you okay?
relationship is, yeah, exactly.
mm.
I'm evaluating the bridge here because I don't know if I can trust you if you're not okay. And so I had to learn, because that was a very common phrase growing up, and very much like the words "I love you." You could say a million different things with those three words, but "Are you okay?" is similar. Being like, "Ugh, are
Mm.
you okay?" versus like, "Hey, are you okay?" There's so many different stories that feel like they light up with different tones. And if we're making space for confusion in someone, because what are the answers to that question? Are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. Are you okay? I don't know. Are you okay? No. And
That's
then
where the
are
guilt
we
comes
and exactly, right? Because I'm having to admit I'm not okay. That must mean I'm really not okay.
in. Hmm.
And it can also mean, "Oh, no, you said you're not okay. Now we have to deal with that." I didn't Many times when people say that, they're not ready for anything but, "Yeah, okay, I'm okay." So,
I've
this
got
is a
like
place where we shut it down. Yeah, go ahead.
two possibly creative thoughts going on right now. One is I want to create like a spreadsheet of words or
Mm,
phrases and the relevant emotions that they're conveying.
mm, mhm,
And the other is just creating alternate realities with the sign people where they do these things
mhm,
that doesn't doesn't
mm,
happen for us. Like if one where it's like normal for signs to go, "Are you okay?" and the other one to say no, where that's the normal way around
Mhm.
rather than.
That's interesting. I also think about body language when I think about the sign people that I just still, even though we don't talk about them very often, I
Mhm,
still hold so much affection for that group.
mhm,
And I think of like, what is it like to have one of those tall sign people that kind of are tall enough that we feel maybe like the size of children kneel down and open their hands and reach towards us and say, "Are you
Mm,
okay?" Versus put their hands on their hips and look down on us and kind of kink their head and say, "Are you okay?"
mm,
Like that
mhm.
body language can very much cue us on what's allowed to be spoken.
mm.
Yeah. And your spreadsheet. Yes, please.
Mhm,
Um, yeah, there's so much music in words. And um in in Gestalt theory, um, there's and it's actually family systems theory also. There's this idea of fusion in relationship. And fusion in relationship spells disaster. It can look very interconnected and like almost a person is like melding themselves with somebody else. But fusion is considered a very brittle, um, fracturable connection. It's like in order to avoid the danger of the world, two people or sometimes a group have linked so tightly together you can't tell where one ends and the other begins. So the
mm,
frame within the therapy field is like if you see a fused relationship, that's your biggest risk to crisis coming. It's just a matter of time before it breaks so completely that those people can't even interact anymore. And when I remembered that in finding this word with confusion and trying this out with different groups, I started to realize like confusion sounds really good when you think about what fusion is
mm,
in relation.
Mm,
Confusion is like, oh, let's have a lot of mini doses of confusion to prevent fusion from setting in.
mhm,
It's like the micro tears, the micro dissonance that allows us to check our rhythms with each other and our scarcity, our hunger. Um, both of those emotions, concern and confusion, can be safer emotions to say in rooms where saying I'm frustrated, I'm irritated, I feel awkward. I don't remember what the other one is. Awkward and doubt. Doubt, yeah. So more vulnerable emotions, especially in like workplace settings or school settings, can be a real norm breaker. But this axis, the fix and freeze axis, this is considered more acceptable because the freeze axis is mostly silent. Nobody gets to
mhm,
really ever even say, I feel guilty for the most part these days. And notice how many times you ever hear anybody in the adulting world talk about shame as a
mhm.
present feeling they're having. Whereas it's more acceptable to say concern, worry, even judgment. I'm judging you hard.
I was
Is
wondering. Oh,
mm,
sorry.
no, you go.
I I thought that was a pause. I apologize.
Yeah, it was. I have a lot of run-on sentences, but yes, jump in.
I don't see it that way. I was wondering if it might be okay to circle back to a workplace example,
Mhm,
because this happens to me where, and it makes me wonder if there's a permission component to confusion, even if
mhm,
it's a self permission.
mhm,
Um, I I sort of am in this weird situation at work where I don't know a lot about our application, but I have monitored access to the people that do know.
Mhm.
Um, so I'm thrown on to customer calls not to solve something, but to be the one that runs into the brick wall so I can explain the brick wall to the people that know how to knock it down.
Mhm.
And I go into these calls confused because like I don't know what's wrong and I don't know how to fix it.
Mhm.
Um, but I'm expected to present like I know.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And I've actually been pulled aside after customer calls by my boss and told I cannot tell the customer I don't know what's wrong.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
And that's usually the first thing I will
Mm.
tell them as my
Yeah.
authentic self is I'm not
Exactly.
here knowing what's wrong,
Yeah.
but I'm
Yeah.
a step in figuring it out.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. This is such a brilliant explanation of it, right? That the harder thing to recognize is that confusion can be contagious. And especially when we're in a power up position as the fixer, to say I'm confused about that, to say I don't know, can create worry, can create a sense of panic, a sense of judgment of, well, why am I talking to you then? Um, and yet your human self has to be left behind. And
Mm.
you don't get to be in the process of not knowing. So, a, a, a different example that maybe some of you have heard me talk about is that I'm like confused that this page is not loading. I can stop sharing, but
You
you get the idea.
might need to restart your browser. Sometimes that helps.
It's stalled out. It's
I,
interesting. I haven't ever
which
frozen.
browser are you using?
It was Chrome. I love it.
Okay,
Active
yeah.
tech support. Am I okay?
Yeah,
Um,
I've noticed that Opera tends to have some kind of performance leak where it
Crazy.
grinds to a halt after a while.
Could be. Yeah, it's interesting to watch it
Mm.
kind of overheat. My computer just having it frozen like that. So I'll leave the screen off for now, but you can all go there if you want to play with it on yours and see if it messes up. Um, what was I saying? Oh yeah, Scott, thank you for your example because a lot of times, so I worked in tech support in graduate school, and I even researched and studied clinicians and their relationship and perceptions of technology because I had a hypothesis that clinicians were anthropomorphizing technology way more than other other grad students.
I swear it's alive.
Yeah, yeah. I swear it's personal, right? So
Mm.
the thing is the customers, the people who are bringing the woes, the problems, they're bringing their confusion. They're coming and going, I don't know what to do, and I think I broke it, or I think you broke it, and you should have fixed it so it never was broken. And there's this constant barrage for for tech troubleshooters of this emotional debt that we have this, I forget the name of it, but we have this belief in society that technology is going to fix everything. And so when it breaks, after it was a bridge, after it was convenient, now there's like a, hey, I trusted this. Hey, we're not supposed to go backwards here. And then that emotional debt and expectation and resentment and whatever that maybe has built because even if the technology was kind of working, it often doesn't work the way it would work if it was just us. Oh, nice. Um, and so, yeah, there's an expectation that builds over time. And then what I saw with my fellow tech people, they said they'd never had a therapist in training work in their office before, uh, is that there's a fear almost of that emotional burden and that distress that doesn't get to be named. And it can be a really painful part of it that the tech people never get to be human beings and shrug their shoulders and being like, well, that sucks, good luck with that, like, or I don't know if I'm going to figure this out. And so this is something during that time that I think overlapped in many ways with other things I was going through in my life. But I was really learning how to treasure the word no, not just N-O, but K-N-O-W. So, like, feeling the flavor of no and the
Knowledge.
sounds of it. The what?
Knowledge.
Yeah, knowledge, exactly, but also
Mm.
knowing and also
Mhm.
saying no. That when did we lose permission in society, in our villages, in our circles to say no and be celebrated for our no? And what's it like when somebody says, I don't know, and people are like, oh, okay, which is actually something that I practice. When people don't know, I'm like, oh, yeah, all right, I'm with you. What don't you know about this? And when people have the courage to say, I don't know, I really treasure that. That's vulnerability. And
Mhm.
sometimes if we join with each other in our not knowing, something entirely different happens. So many of you have heard me, and you too have joined in the howls about the software Unity that we use often for our 3D creations, etc. One of the like high up kind of developers within Unity had a meeting with me a few times,
Oh wow.
maybe about 5 years ago. Yeah, somebody had told him to come talk to me, and so
Huh.
we had these meetings, and it took I think 3 times before his I don't know kind of cracked open. And what it was this concern about not just the tool itself, but the entire company. And it was this concern that the teams were being very siloed by the nature of like the speed of how everything was being requested and also like the work from home aspect. And so the teams were not hanging out next to the water cooler or being in spaces that they didn't have these scrum kind of sprints going on. And because of those sprints and this thing that was always hanging over their head of like, if I don't perform as quickly as possible, um, then I'm going to be the next one that's left out. And so he was saying that the products that were coming out of these teams were just broken. They didn't fit with anything else. Everything the world hated about Unity was just getting worse because of the structure of the company. And he didn't know how to reach his superiors and really like say, we've got to change our structure. This is not working. This is making
Wait.
it look like we're producing things, but we're not actually getting we're not developing products that are able to integrate and be versatile with other products and
Mm.
projects.
He
It's
was really high up in Unity, but he still had people above him.
yeah, yeah.
Mm. Or
And
just business people.
yeah, exactly. So less connected to the actual engineering and the development piece, but
Hmm.
he was also in a real grief process for himself of the connectivity that comes from a place of confusion and interdisciplinary cross-functional team experiences. He remembered with sadness and nostalgia the chaos of being with a whole bunch of people who didn't know, being asked to solve a problem that nobody felt completely competent or like it was possible to do. And because there weren't these kind of tightened infrastructure expectations of if you're working, you have to be putting output all the time, output, 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 um, which makes us kind of like objects, to be farmed. Uh, that the
Hmm.
creative ideas that would be born in that I don't know place between the teams sometimes would get tabled for months or years, but they would eventually come back around somewhere else. And so he was just really grieving that the group mind, the hive mind was almost dead at that time. And he kept thinking, well, is it me? Am I just burned out here? And so this was a moment where we got to talk about like how to how to reality test that, how to what kind of language to use in a work environment that doesn't allow us to talk about feelings but still identify there's a problem, and how to build some support and some data to for it to be not just a concern, which is kind of he was perpetually stuck in this place of worry and concern, but actually like proving that concern enough to show it to the people that could hopefully make some changes. So getting to have windows at times into these different like kind of well-known companies or places that are within tech, I've realized how much the zeros and ones that everything is based off of that we're connecting through right now, the binaries, how much speed they give us and convenience, but also how much shutdown that between that 0 and 1 is a whole universe of relationship. And
Mm.
it's considered like inefficient and slacking and all of these things to be in that liminal space, to be in the in between, to be in the I don't know. And just because I don't know doesn't mean I'm leaving this place. It doesn't mean I'm not gonna know. I'm just being with the huh, and that's okay.
Yeah, I feel like the path through confusion is acceptance,
Hmm.
understanding of something, not being like agreeing with it, just accepting like, oh, I'm in a situation where I don't know what to do. What steps do
Mm-hmm.
I take to figure that out?
Mm-hmm.
If it's urgent, how do I put this to a higher priority in this moment? Or if it's not urgent,
Mm-hmm.
perhaps I'll ask a friend later or do a Google research or
Mm-hmm.
something.
Yeah. Yeah. I also learned as a healer and a facilitator and a coach that the storming phase for people and for groups that struggle inside of not knowing and trying to get more comfortable is so important. It creates the hunger, it creates the awareness of the missing parts. And yet it's so uncomfortable. And so my muscle over time has been learning how to step back, but not away,
Hmm.
Mm.
Yeah.
and how to hold space for that unknowing. Sometimes confusion is a sign of unlearning. I thought I knew, and then I've made mistakes. I hurt people. Something did not fit. So I'm going to unlearn what I knew to see what else can grow there.
Hmm.
Mm.
So
I was
I'm
gonna say,
smiling. Yeah, go ahead,
I was
Mary.
gonna say
Let's see what's
mislearning.
mislearning. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes I look at, well, not much these days, but maybe more because I'm leaving the city and all the lights probably here soon. I think about the sky and this idea of the stars, and I think about all those stars like as data points, and what stars can we see and what stars can't we see. If we could see all the stars, then the sky wouldn't be dark, right? Because if we could see infinitely, it would be so bright we could never close our eyes, or it wouldn't matter. So, what are the stories I'm telling with the data points that I have, and how's that going for me? And confusion is like a gear shift to change my lenses. And sometimes I look at it like an oasis from flow. When somebody's confused, I just want to go huddle up next to them and be like, "Tell me about confusion. I need to hide here for a while. I
Mhm.
want to I want to be more confused." um yeah, it's hard to know things, and it's a relief sometimes to return to not knowing.
Yeah, I kind of liken confusion to um, uh, a grey area somewhere
Mm, mhm,
between black and white
mhm,
uh, frameworks,
yeah,
and that kind of framework can be quite brutal. It's un- unforgiving and inhuman sometimes.
mhm,
Um,
Mm.
so it's interesting looking at confusion as potentially deepening into the human.
mhm. Oh, yeah. I highly recommend Confusion when you can space for it. Um, it it's humbling to be confused if presence can live with confusion.
I feel
I
like,
think.
oh, you
Oh,
go,
go ahead,
Scott.
Mary. Nope. It's you first.
um, I was gonna say I feel like I exercise the confusion muscle a lot with my
Mhm,
programming and game development and
mhm.
stuff.
Yes, you do exercise it quite a bit. That's true. I've personally witnessed it. Scott.
Yeah. Speaking of exercising the confusion muscle, I feel like some of our greatest stories um, are examples of like beautiful layers of confusion.
Mm,
I'm thinking of a movie like 2001. There's like unanswerable
Mm.
questions in that movie, and
mhm.
it's so fun to sit with.
Hmm.
That's a good point. I feel like there's quite a lot of movies out there that people agree that are way better when things are not answered.
Hmm. Mhm.
Hmm.
Like sometimes it's like horror or sci-fi, and it's like, oh, they had to go in and explain how the doohickey works or how the
Mhm,
monster works,
mhm,
and suddenly it becomes very knowable and boring.
mhm. One of my most confusing movies that I saw growing up, so I easily watched it 20 times or more, was a movie called The Game, and
Is that the
the
one with what's his name?
Michael Douglas.
Martin Sheen?
I think it's Michael Douglas, but
Oh,
maybe it is
Michael
Martin.
Douglas. No, yeah,
Yeah,
I think
Michael
you're right.
Douglas. Yeah, so Michael Douglas
Uh-huh.
is very confused through the whole movie.
Mhm.
Terrified and confused, and he goes back and forth, and it's kinda like a horror mystery or something, but the big aha moment at the very end is happens after he goes all the way down to the bottom of the axis into full shame. He lets go. He realizes, "I am the problem." And there's a doorway through that releasing that he didn't ever anticipate, and I never did either, even though I watched the movie 20 times. Every time I got to that spot, I'm like, "Wow, you'd never expect that ending." And yet traveling with him through that journey of trying to find all the pieces, trying to understand himself, trying to live as if there's no tomorrow was it was transformative to me to like remember how deeply confused he was and realize I don't feel that confused.
Hmm.
Um, something about getting to see an extreme version of a kind of emotional cycle. Yeah, that's it. Gave me permission to be smaller inside of it and not be as fearful.
Hmm. There's a particular moment in that film I remember where the woman, I can't remember her name, um, starts pointing out that the house is fake, and she like
Mm.
points out that the books aren't real and that kind of thing. And at that
Mhm.
point, I remember feeling very suspicious, like,
Mm.
um, uh, and not just suspicious immersed with the characters, but suspicious of where is this film trying to take me?
Mm. Mhm. Because they put the
Mm.
fake books in there for her to discover,
Yeah.
right? Now you're part of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, really well put. Vanilla Sky is another great one. Yeah, they're totally the same genre.
Hmm.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. So I keep going back to what you said earlier, Scott, that you're not allowed to say, I don't know.
Hmm.
And my heart
Oh,
hurts
yeah.
with you in that.
Mm.
My heart hurts so deeply for pretty much the whole field of tech. But specifically the problem solver people for when things go wrong within tech. Um, they they suffer very quietly and many times without a sense of joy in their work. Um, and I believe that some of that might be because they're not allowed to be confused and they're not allowed to share that and it not be considered, well, you're a failure at your job then.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like this is a really important discussion because it's like, how do we reintegrate
Mhm.
confusion?
Mhm.
Um, I feel like confusion is a very policed emotion at a workplace,
Mm.
Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
and
a.
like the executive management team can be confused behind their closed doors,
Yeah.
but then they enforce a no confusion zone
Yeah.
Mm.
once they get their policies decided.
That's
And
it. Yeah.
like I think this is going to be important for me because like it's a stress point for me at work to know like meetings are coming up where I don't have the answers.
Mhm.
Um, but that's the presence I bring to the
Mhm.
meeting itself as I come in
Mhm.
and say, hey, like we may not know what's going on, but we're going to figure it out. Like,
Mhm.
Mhm. Mhm. That's
Uh, y-
lovely.
yeah, I was gonna say, when I'm facing customers who have a bug or something, I have this go-to phrase, which is, "That's odd. Let's try to figure this out." That kind of thing.
Mhm.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's like very common in the software world. That's what I'm
Yeah.
doing most at my job pretty much all the time is like, okay, let's figure this out. Let's
Mhm.
learn how this works and take a look.
Do you all know what my actual business company name is?
Uh, no. Do
Hey,
you have an
you
LLC?
Incorporated.
LLC.
LLC, that's right. Yes. It's Figure It In.
Hmm,
Hmm.
Very interesting.
Mhm.
that's a fun play on words.
Mhm. Yeah. It's Figure It In. Partly because I started to do consulting in the business world, which led to that. I used to have my practice was called Returning to Compassion, and that name did not work well in the business world. So I created a separate business called Figure It In, and that confused people in the business world, but it intrigued them.
Hmm.
They're like, "Figure it in?" I was gonna say, "Out, what are you talking about?" Um, what does it mean to figure something in? I've never done that before. And
What is this
now we're
place? I didn't know it existed.
exactly, yes. What is this in between everything place that we're figuring things into?
In?
So
Things
it
don't have an in.
that's right. Everything goes out or it's wrong. And so what I've learned to do with my language is create confusion on purpose and to dose it in micro doses and kind of read the room and notice like too much confusion just shuts people down, but just enough stirs them up.
Mm.
That's kind of makes me think of riddles, right? Like riddles
Hmm.
are
Mm.
a
Exactly.
on purpose confusion game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I mean that's kind of like the mechanism of dopamine. It's that, in a gambling situation, you don't know exactly what's about to happen. Like you have an anticipation of it, and if it happens all the time and you predict it, you lose interest. It's when it
Exactly.
doesn't happen most of the time that you get really invested and you're like, "Oh, is it gonna happen this time?" And that's like yeah, that's just
Yeah.
like how so many things work these days.
So the ingredients there, right? That's intermittent
Hmm.
reinforcement, right? The ingredients there is that I'm going to make the pleasure experience. So earlier, Scott said confusion means danger, confusion means something very bad is going to happen. But what if that gets reversed and confusion means something good is going to happen?
Hmm. Hmm.
So, a very soft way that we all learned riddles as a kid is knock, knock.
Who's there?
I don't know. Let's go find out.
I don't know. Let's go find out who.
Ah, there you go.
Mm.
Lovely. I forgot that that was part of the joke. So, yeah, you get to finish that one. But this is this is the part that like where play and humor and softness can move through established invisible cultures that say we don't get to feel our feelings. It's not normal to be confused. If we move through confusion into curiosity and then into humor, and we do that really softly, we'll start to see people around us many times, or I will say I in this case. I I've experimented with this a lot, and I see people starting to experiment themselves basically. Is realizing that like everybody pretending to know what we're doing and what the right thing is can be predictable, but also boring as heck. And so, like, sometimes when I go into a room and I know there's an established person who's considered the most confused, the most incompetent, I will sit somewhere nearby them and then I will find ways to work them into the conversation gently, but repeatedly with me taking on the archetype of confusion and inviting them to help me out. So the screen mirror sharing, there's an option on there that's called the field, and on the left hand side. And if you click on that, you're gonna see.
Ah,
Yeah, I know I've got
I
to
can't
fix
click
that.
on it.
No,
I
No,
can't.
yeah,
I can click over
I am
here.
not able to click.
I did not fix, or I did fix that, and then I had to roll it back. Confusing. Sorry, you're like sneak over there. No, it's not working. Okay, well, the field basically will show you when that is working that like on the top of that axis where the hero, the victor is a sense of being helpful. And that is a projection by the field. They need a helpful person. And because the field has non-verbally kind of elected that role, this is the person who's leading us, they have the vision, we know they know. Then many times, if you look in the room, you're going to find somebody else who's in the helplessness. And they're considered the one who knows the least, and they're going to be the least helpful. And so, to be the person who has more social power, actually being the least helpful person will often stir the entire room up because nobody knows what to do. And the the person who's the least helpful will get some relief and often shift from that place into either releasing some of that frustration that gets frozen and embedded. And sometimes that person might target me of being like, well, ugh, this is such a disorganized space. But now they're actually naming something that maybe everyone's feeling to some degree. And it gives them a bit more of a village and community to be offering some knowing where they've been silent that whole time.
I feel like this is a new level of insult. Or, my words are failing me. Insight. um,
Insight.
Mm.
a new
Oh,
level of insight
big
into
difference
the
there.
yeah. I feel so insulted. Sorry, I didn't mean to
I'm
drop
gonna
that
throw you
feeling.
some big
Wasn't
um,
that Freudian slip?
yeah.
insight
I feel
until
this is so insulin. Yeah, it's just going all over the place
Oh
here.
that's
gosh.
right.
Um, I like a consultant's role is to almost play like the confused person, like
Yes.
to come into the company and be like the one person that's allowed to be publicly
Hmm.
confused
Yes.
because
Yes.
you're temporary.
Yes.
Like
Exactly.
we're gonna invite a temporarily confused presence
Yeah.
to break the stalemate because nobody else is allowed to be
Right. Right. And,
confused.
and then we're gonna feel a resurgence of our expertise because we're filling you in as the consultant. We're giving you all the pieces to see if you can flip from your confusion into concern and potential judgment and help us figure out what is interrupting our flow, what is not working.
I feel
And
like
so
it's
that,
such an interesting thing to. Oh, sorry.
you go, yeah,
Just I can't control my eureka
yeah, no,
moments.
I feel your passion. Go for it.
It's
Ahas are awesome.
it's like if you look at a different scenario, kind of like what you're describing as like a motivational speaker, right? Like a motivational speaker is like, I have all the answers and
Mm-hmm,
zero
Mm.
confusion,
mm-hmm,
and everybody else is sort of subservient, like captive audience to that for
mm-hmm,
however long it endures.
mm-hmm,
But like the spaces a lot of times that we have in VR are like, let's discuss something, and it's like it's okay to just be like, hey, I don't understand, but I have this to add. And like
mm-hmm,
that's such a different place to be a part of.
mm-hmm,
Um, and I never really like picked apart like the dynamics of those different spaces.
mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. There's there's something where some of you all know this actually. So I was traveling a couple months ago, and one of the people that I was there with was trying to get me to move there. And so she was talking about how she could offer me a job and she could make it all work and whatever. And the more confident she sounded, the more confused I felt and doubtful I felt.
Mm.
And
Mm.
and so and yet this was a new person in my life, so I had to sound like interested and curious, but I felt all these caution breaks happening in me, all these like slowing down, freezing, and giving non-committal answers and whatever, because she was flagging a lot of confidence that I just had not experienced before at that level in the field she was wanting me to join her in. So it
Mm.
was a moment of realizing that like sometimes that confidence can actually like work against itself, and that really making space to be learning together is where we go from being the hero to the coach.
Mm.
And I was in a room years ago where we were all training on how to supervise therapists who were seeing clients, and so we were learning how to be their supervisors. And in the 4 days, it was this very intensive, like 10 hours per day training. But probably on the third day, I was in this moment where I was realizing that I had said probably 2 sentences in 3 days, and I was kind of having a panic moment. I remember my body was sweating a little bit because I was like, "Well, they're supposed to be certifying me by tomorrow evening that I know how to be a supervisor, and I've said so little in all of these discussions, and this is this huge conference table with maybe like 15 people, therapists, and then the supervisor of supervisors stands at the other side and is teaching us all the ways."
Mm.
And so she says to everybody, in order for you to be certified as a supervisor, you need to seek out supervision from somebody you consider an expert and has been through at least this training before. And she said, "Do you all have a sense of who you want to supervise you?" And people kind of like nodded their heads and shrugged their shoulders, whatever. And then she said, um, um, who's most on your mind, like who do you think you would want to be supervised by? And to my profound shock, somebody turned to me and pointed at me and said, "Her." And I'm looking at them and going, "What?" And everyone was like, "Oh my God, me too." And they were all having this joining moment of confidence. And I'm having this moment of horror of going, "What room am I in? These people have heard me say nothing. Why are they saying this? Like, I am so confused right now."
But
Hmm.
And
Ruth, it's called supervising, not super talking.
exactly. I mean, really.
I'm good at
So
looking.
it was such a moment for me because what I started to realize is even though I had said nothing almost constantly for those 3 days, I had never spaced out. I had never looked away. I had taken very few notes. I had just been listening really deeply to everything everyone was sharing. I was so deep in my own process of healing from past traumas with supervisors, but also trying to imagine if this was something I was ever going to do because I kind of had been doing it already for years. I just hadn't been paid for it. So, was I ever going to take this on as an official role? Was the question I was asking myself. And then I remember asking a few of them during a lunch break that day of just going like, "Hey, why did you say that? Like, what do you know about me? Like, did you go look me up?" Or, and they just said, "I don't know, but it's just a feeling. I can't wait to hear you say something. And
Hmm.
whenever you do say something, I feel clearer and more solid," or something like that. And I was like, "Okay, I feel confused, but sure." Like I would never want to trust somebody I'd heard only a few sentences from with like telling me how to handle my clients, but thank you for your confidence in
S-
me.
I mean, I guess
Yeah.
sometimes expressing confusion is the clarity that people need because it's calling out what they're feeling.
Hmm, that's interesting. Can you explain that more?
Um, well, if a room is full of confused people, the one who's going to become their leader is the one who says, "This is really confusing, isn't it?"
It joins them.
Yeah,
Could Yeah. I also realized how much nonverbals can impact us. That
right.
we're all in a conference circle, right? For 30 hours there. And I had not been paying attention if they were paying attention to me because technically we were all supposed to be paying attention to this instructor.
Mm,
But all of my micro expressions, if we think about how communication is up to 80% not the words we're saying, would actually have made a lot of sense there
mm,
because very little of what was shared there was at all confusing for me. Um, I sometimes am very quiet in classroom settings because I'm having to regulate myself because I am watching instructors say things that are kind of half cooked a bit.
mm,
And I'm sitting there and having these little panic cycles of going, what is going to happen to all the people that thinks that's the whole part? And then they're going to use that. And what is it going to do? And have I built enough social capital to say something here and not end up polarizing with the person in charge?
mm,
Like, so it's this constant moving kind of spaceship in me that's going like, can I engage here and not risk a rupture in this space?
So you're a little more careful than to be that one annoying student who keeps asking
Exactly.
questions that
Yeah. Yeah.
gets them
No,
stumped.
Mm.
I learned a long time ago to take two sets of notes in my classes. One was what I was supposed to be learning, and two was venting
Mm,
about what was causing junk or undoneness in people, and and then kind of keep it for my own records. I literally, in some classes and places, even work environments, would write that second series of notes as almost a letter to myself of just going, hey, if you're ever in this position of power, here's what I want you to remember. And so I would kind of supervise myself in the future as a way to keep myself from going into judgment or resentment
mm,
or even anger. And so, yeah, there's ways that I use confusion to be kind of just like a whirlpool of data that allows me to kind of like stand in the middle of it and just it's like, well, if we don't know, then what are we after admitting that? So, full circle back to this model that is kind of, you know, this has been 11 years now of me teaching this without having a three-dimensional way to really like look at it and compare it very fluidly the way you can see on that screen, turning on
Mm.
axes, turning off them, starting to look at their relationships bit by bit to each other in a three-dimensional way. Um, Even though it's fun and it's eye candy, I've taught this entire time with the realization that, like, at minimum, y'all have an atlas on what's going on inside of Hey You, and maybe it applies to you also. And what's fun about this gadget that I'm working into it is that eventually there will be ways to kind of change almost anything on this model and customize it for yourself. Maybe your word isn't
Mm.
confusion, maybe it's numbness. Um, in different languages, I've had people look at this model from other cultures and languages, and they've redone the model in their culture and realized that there are some emotions that don't quite cross over the same way. And so they
Mm.
able to write down the emotions that fit for them and take that to their circles and share.
mm,
So I look at this like it's a calibration tool to understand the patterns of how this black box inside of us we call feelings actually does have some predictable characteristics sometimes.
Mm. When
I,
would you say it's not predictable?
Hmm. Now we're in confusion.
yeah, I was just thinking about that exact thing and thinking like confusion is unpredictability, which is randomness, which is what a lot of um, gambling revolves around,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
where addiction comes from. And I'm thinking,
Mhm.
is confusion a core component of addiction?
It can be learned helplessness, right?
Mm.
That the risk of and I believe to some degree, not for everybody, and I like that we make room for what we call people who are mute or nonverbal in VR by just saying they're mute, like they don't speak. And we don't assume or judge why that is.
Hmm.
And I look at a lot of these people like they have had so many confusing experiences connecting with people that they've just stopped using their words.
Hmm.
And there's too much risk to use their words.
Mhm.
And how does that shift? And so I've gotten to hear a lot of stories from people of how that shifted for them. And it's all different pathways. But I value confusion like I value the confusion maybe a butterfly feels when it's turning into a butterfly and it's just a big sack of goop. Like
Yeah,
now
it just
we,
seems to know what to do. It's weird.
yeah, yeah. And now we know that like there is permanent memory that does get transferred between the caterpillar and the butterfly.
Mm.
So
Mm-hmm.
even though it looks like goop to us, it actually does have some organization in it that we just didn't have the lenses to see.
Scoop with a brain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm.
So this comes to, I look at this axis that we're on right now, this y axis, the hero and the bystander, as the split between the brain and the body,
Mm.
and the split between being almost like hyperactive, hyperfunctional, and hypoactive and hypofunctional. And that the healing of those polarities is learning how to move into the center of my own body and watching, when do I start using, as you've heard me rail on the word think, when do I use that word think more often? When do I use it less often? And can I slow what I'm saying down long enough to feel what I'm saying and try different words in those places that feel easy to say, but what are the challenging words I could use here instead? So this is where I remember that we have a whole neuronal network in our intestines, in our gut. And yet when we say think, often people touch their head in their nonverbals. Um, think
Mm.
is considered a brain activity, and yet the truth of it is it's a nervous system activity. And so knowing that the field around me and around us is always communicating some kind of messaging, and many times it is a bias towards being okay, maintaining the status quo, keep calm and carry on, little nod towards that.
Hmm.
And when does the steadiness that feels secure become a jail, a tomb, something that confines us and keeps us from growing? When do we get to be confused and not okay and be accepted and even celebrated in that? As a facilitator, I'm looking for the archetype of confusion. And if it doesn't show up every time, I get concerned.
Hmm.
I always want that archetype around, because otherwise we're in groupthink territory. But I want to make sure that archetype is moving through the group and it's not staying on any one person, because the longer it stays on somebody, the more they're dropping into guilt and shame.
Hmm.
Yeah, I guess that's an interesting point. If people are consistently confident in everything going on around them,
Yeah.
it's, I guess you could say, a sign that they're following something, and that something is to them what they believe is correct and what to do.
Mhm.
And if they're never thinking or stopping to ask questions or to acknowledge the feeling of confusion, then I could see why that would be concerning.
Mhm. Yeah. And literally what I just said is, when nobody is confused, I take on concern,
Hmm.
right? That basically, like, everyone being in a single rhythm makes me the dissonance. And now I'm looking for the danger, because
Hmm.
there's a fusion happening there. And the con is right around the corner somewhere.
So,
And so, yeah, I'm always looking for those releases in people, that are the vulnerability to say I'm confused, the vulnerability to say I'm not okay. Um, Even though it can feel like a death to name that, to release that, I always feel like it's a bloom in my mind. It's a flower that's, springing up and saying, I have faith that I can name this and survive it. I have faith that I'm safe enough here to not understand and still be included and welcomed and belong.
I just thought about a confident confusion,
Mhm.
which
Yeah.
is a student in a classroom who is unafraid to ask questions
Mhm.
about what they're
Mm.
confused about.
Mhm. Yeah. And how many people I've seen over the years drop out of classes, drop out of school even because they couldn't tolerate their own confusion.
Mm.
And there wasn't room for that. And so, one of the pieces that I will offer, especially grad students when they are thinking of quitting or whatever, is saying, my core recipe was that 80% of it is just show up. Doesn't mean you have your homework done, doesn't mean you're going to pass, doesn't mean you know what you're talking about. Just show up and keep showing up as often as you can. And they'll either get sick of you and kick you out, or they'll get sick of you and graduate you. But it's
And
rarely going to be something of a fantasy of they're just going to think, you're so ready, we're releasing you. That does not happen.
no,
There's a
and
group B at the end.
if you can't figure it out, then figure it in instead.
That's it. And really, it's the words figure it in confuse me infinitely. I don't know what that means, but it kind of tickles my brain to contemplate those words. And and there's more meaning behind it than I'll explain here, but it returns me to my heart to say figure it in.
I
It's
kind of,
both my guard and my guardian to use those words,
I kind of,
because the when we make the thing an it, that means we can throw it away. It's an object.
mm, I kind of
But to
think of
say,
figure it out as like you start with some kind of tangle and then you pull the pieces apart and then it straightens. Whereas
mm-hmm,
figure it in is where you push them together and you get, I don't know, a bundle.
mm-hmm, yeah,
A
exactly,
basket.
yeah. And you know, now we get to kind of ground this in. We've been on this journey of listening and learning about confusion with each other. How does this influence conflict? How does how have what we've talked about here changed, if at all, perception of this emotion and how it fits inside a conflict? How to use this emotion with intention, with letting it be a friend on that journey.
Easiest scenario in my mind is to come in as a third party who doesn't hold all the chips and be
Mm.
confused in that space. A bit like the consultant
Mhm,
that was
mhm,
mentioned.
mhm. You you may remember, I don't do this as much anymore, but I love it when people bring it up to do it. That when we do these hops, um, these human on purpose kind of self reflections or group reflections of these hard emotions, we used to start out with this exercise of pretend that your leader is an alien that has never felt a human emotion before and doesn't know what you're all talking about. And I want you to explain this emotion to me through all kinds of ways. And so I can get it. But I'm very confused about this emotion. So you've got to explain it to me without assuming that I understand anything of the world you come from. And we would take, when I did this in alt space, it was just really wild to watch how creative people got about embodying these different emotions for the first time in their lives because they couldn't just default to a dictionary definition.
Mm.
They had to teach it from their being, their wholeness, their vibrations. Or if people came in who didn't know the language we were all speaking, how did we convey that emotion to them so they got it and could echo it back?
I
And yeah.
feel like confusion is like if you imagine um, a duvet cover or something, but it's over the brain and it's got all of these crinkles in it. You have to
Mm,
try and straighten them out, but every time you
mm,
pull one, another one pops up somewhere else.
mm, mm. When you say that, I think of all the messy beds in VR chat.
Right.
Like, how
Mm.
many of you have ever seen a bed in VR chat? I mean, they exist, but they're very rare. The minority of beds in VR chat are actually made up. They're
Mhm.
wrinkle free. And yet people see those wrinkles and they think, cozy, I can't
Mm.
mess up this space. I already belong here.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's no beds that have just the sheets everywhere. I
Mhm.
suspect because those are just objectively harder to model, so people just are like, it's good enough.
Mhm.
Mm,
Actually,
interesting.
folding the blankets is not easy at all. Like you have to either do
Yeah,
a cloth physics simulation or you're gonna have to manually place thousands of vertices. It's not clean or simple.
I've heard this. Yeah. But it is interesting you say that because my perception of VR chat is mostly messy beds. Most, and maybe it's because
Hmm.
of pillows and how they're just thrown all over the place. But I experience many worlds that just have very lived in feeling to them.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
Might be modeling quite honestly to their own bedroom.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, and that there's a shaming experience to seeing a place perfectly made up. So that's an environmental design piece, like
Huh.
I learned of like Don Carson, who you've all met before. Like has joked, but also like I believe this will probably happen on some level. If I'm invited to his funeral, I will be the one talking about this. I'm sure. Is that like his greatest tribute would be a knocked over chair.
Mm.
Is that something he
Like,
put in one of his
oh,
worlds
he has it
and
all over the place in Horizon and everywhere. He's like and he has a really beautiful museum in there we could go tour, but he contrasts like when you make a space look like nobody lives there, nobody's allowed to be human. What does it tell the humans who've just entered?
Mm.
that's a really good point, yeah.
Yeah. And that hits my heart so deeply, especially knowing the career that he's been in as an Imagineer, as a Disney person, like making the
Mm.
world feel perfect, and like the cartoons are 3D, but barely, like that it's a simple world that he was building the excitement for in these environments. And yet the deeper truth behind it was, does this feed our souls? Does it make us feel welcome just as we are? Does it let us know that others were here and they were safe enough to use this space unconsciously?
So
Hmm.
that made me think of cats and how they like to knock things over, and
Mhm. Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
it's
Hmm.
maybe from their perspective, it's more of a revenge confusion.
Yeah, they're decorating. They're like, "This is how
Certainly.
I feel." Yeah.
Mm.
So I wanna check in with you, Scott. We've got about 10 more minutes, and you often hold so much presence in space. What are you noticing?
I think I'm gonna try to deepen the pause practice when I
Mm,
feel confused,
mm,
especially at work, because
mm,
that's where suffering is the most
mhm,
poignant. Um,
mhm,
but and to try to recapture like some of the joy that can come from confusion.
Mhm.
Um, I
Yeah.
think sometimes I get in the mode of like playing a game of whack-a-mole
Mhm.
where I'm trying to solve the problem so quickly so that I can just catch a break from the
Mhm.
problem.
Mhm.
And I'm skipping like the confusion step of just like pontificating, like
Mhm.
what is
Mm.
happening right here? Like let me
Mhm.
Mhm.
sit in this unknowing because that's missing a part of the human experience.
Mhm.
Is the the unknown, the
The
feeling of
unknowing.
yeah.
Mhm.
Mm.
So
So
there's
that's where my mind is at. It's just
love that, making room for that, right? And that eventually that can live sometimes in a really like full of all the emotions at the same time breath, right? Of like I'm going to feel anger and sadness and worry and guilt, and then I'm going to feel frustration and irritation and concern and confusion, and I'm going to ramp up the vibration of all of those in me and then breathe through it one full cycle. And what that can do inside of me is it just kind of like fatigues every direction and it lands me like this little baby blob in the middle. I'm just like, I'm all of them. I'm none of them. I'm just here. And then I can start to grow new patterns and new dances with what's around me
Mm.
because it's kind of like a mini death, right? If I stay confused long enough in the wild, it is danger and I am going to die. But the
Mm.
practice of being with confusion tells my nervous system ultimately, if I'm choosing to stay here, I must kind of be okay. Like, I didn't choose to come here, but if I choose to stay here, then something else is going on. I'm both inside the confusion, but I'm also holding the confusion and whispering in its ear, you belong here too.
I have a practice with my work that I've noticed where I like to look at bugs that confuse me a day ahead of when I actually start working on them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a way for me to get myself prepared for what
Mm-hmm.
I'm about to get myself into.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I've found it much easier on my emotional
Mm-hmm.
well-being to do it that way.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
kind of like a investigator on day one, and then solver on day two, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like sizing up the thing, but also traveling through it and realizing there's no scary ghosts in here. Like
Hmm.
it's going to be a puzzle, but I know the map, at least vaguely. I know the journey.
Yep.
Yeah. So you're giving yourself a chance to like sleep on I survived the first pass and
Yeah, I
I
think
know.
it's also
Yeah.
because of confusion with responsibility
Mm,
is like that for me leads into guilt and then maybe frustration and all of this other stuff. But if
mm,
I tell myself I'm not going to fix this today, then I don't
mm,
have the responsibility layer.
hmm. Yeah, that's great. That's great. Yeah, the confusion often is that I see it as a collapse of sorts. It's a saying like, I don't get this, I can't get this. And if we
Mm.
think about all the ways in our educational journey, we weren't allowed to say that. And that was literally F for failure.
Mm.
And so every time I feel confusion, I feel like I go put my arms around that younger me and I'm like, we're doing it differently this time. It's okay to be confused. And I just have to remember how many hundreds of me's got shut down growing up. That
Mm.
confusion was not acceptable. And so every time I feel confusion, I'm like, ah, another me to retrieve. Please hold.
Yeah, I've been there for sure.
Hmm.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah. So we are in a four-person circle here. And we don't have to appreciate. We can be in our confusion. And is there something about something each of you have said? One of you has said we can do a little appreciation round of what touched our hearts about something somebody else said today that we know we're going to take with us and kind of feel in our bodies. Hmm.
For
One
me,
was
it's
sitting.
definitely Scott's confusion being uh, kind of a threat,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and yeah,
Yeah. I resonate with that.
I'll be digesting that for a while.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think in the beginning when the question was asked, is it okay to be confused? And that made me really pause for a moment. Like, what do you
Hmm.
mean? It's
Mm.
Hmm.
pretty much usually not okay, but I would
Hmm.
say what we've learned today is like, right, there are different kinds of confusion, and when you're in a moment of anticipating something good happening, that's totally fine to be okay being confused there.
Hmm.
I guess it's just the context. It's like you're in a social situation with people around you, there might be expectations not to be confused, and yeah,
Well, and
very interesting.
I love that, and I would invite you to hold a doorway there that there's another step eventually, maybe,
Hmm.
which is that like you can use asynchronous. I can use asynchronous communication with myself to say, "Oh, I'm feeling confusion. Oh, I think I'm about to get eaten by a lion I can't see, maybe because I'm not tracking where things are. Oh, this is a surprise birthday party. And it really is going to be somebody across the room laughing at something I said because I'm taking my time and I'm not joining with everyone else pretending I know. And I'll catch that smile in them because they get it. They understand I'm making room for my confusion. And that's going to feel like my victory, even though the room feels toxic or groupthink or whatever else.
Mm.
It's choosing that there is a light that is going to sparkle here, and it's going to be because I brought presence to this uncomfortable place instead of just reacting to it. So
Hmm.
the surprise birthday party is a lovely metaphor, and then how do we bring it down to just a little droplet and know that those droplets exist in every moment. And I'm
Hmm.
touched in my heart for Vidor about what you just said of going like, wait, is confusion okay? I never thought about that. That's that's not allowed. That's sad to me to know that's your truth, and yet I completely understand. I've seen this everywhere. It's
Hmm.
so intense though to realize we're not allowed to feel a muscle that is the softest direction of slowing down.
Yeah, I think it kind of reflects on a part of me that like anytime we're in a new situation and I see other people being confused, I'm like, hold on, everyone stop. We need to
Yeah.
make sure no one's
Yeah.
confused. Let me give
Yeah.
you all the context and make
Exactly.
sure you're completely on track and we can
Uh-huh.
continue forward.
That's it. There you go. So now you get to realize how often you jump in and lead the train.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to not have tracks.
I mean, if we don't continue without them, we're just going to derail pretty quickly. So, might as
And
well, right?
and think about what the train was and what the rail means and what speed has done to our society, our humanity,
Mm,
our existence. Sometimes trains aren't meant to be built.
mm,
Mm. I think for me, it was the um, clinical supervisory
Mm,
story,
mhm,
because I love nonverbal communication,
mhm,
and it reminds me of that movie Moneyball, where um, Brad Pitt is trying to engineer some trades in this meeting room, and
mm,
there's all this talk going on, but there's one person that's not saying anything that the other like team keeps looking to before they answer anything.
mhm,
And at the end of the meeting, like Brad Pitt tracks that person down and he's like, "Who are you?"
mhm,
And I just
Why does
love
everyone look at
when
you?
mm,
yeah, I love how communication can be
mhm.
nonverbal, and it sounded like the room picked up what you were saying.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. And actually, when you said that, I remembered an emotional feeling beyond my confusion, which was actual like fear, some terror almost. Because the moment people kind of pointed and laughed and looked at me, my eyes got wide and I looked up at this teacher and I was scared that she was going to see this through darker lenses of being like, how do they all know you and I don't know you? What are you doing behind my back? Are you threatening me? Because
Oh, geez.
and that's just that primal part of me that has experienced those polarities before. And I
Mm.
was grateful that I had met with her, I think the day before, and told her, "Hey, I'm partly quiet because I've had some wounds around this whole thing and I'm working through it." So I
Mm,
was relieved to remember that I had tried to reduce that tension with her just in case it was there right before this whole thing happened. And yeah, the dances with the nonverbals, once people start to pick up on that, I often feel like you may be confused, but you will never be bored again
Mm.
because there's so much data there inside my body and inside the bodies present in whatever way they are. And that data is it's like it's not just watching it through our eyes, it's feeling it through our hearts. It's trusting when my breath catches and everybody's on mute, maybe somebody else held their breath too.
Mhm. Yeah, that's interesting. Like being singled out for any reason, even if
Mhm,
it's appreciation, is like a trigger for me.
mhm. It can be
I can
scary.
understand that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Kind
Oof.
of thinking of confusion now as a seed leaving a flower or tree and growing somewhere new.
Mhm. Exactly. Yeah, that's such a lovely way to put it. I I have imagined multiple times, especially when I was taking care of smaller critters who loved trees,
mm.
um, just the idea that a tree is like talking. Oh, that's a cute little visual in the chat. Like the perfect fur for flower.
It's
Um,
illegally cute.
it's illegally, it's criminally cute.
I see
Um,
that.
is that oh, what was I saying? That's interesting. I don't remember. So I guess that's it. So see, that I love those moments when I lose track because I'm like, I used to feel like, oh no, you caught me without my clarity. Now you'll know I'm not good enough. But over time, when I feel confused like that, I'm like, oh, trust that. A rhythm just changed.
Mm.
Let it go. And so I'm remembering what time it is and wanting to be respectful. Everyone's holding here. I'm
Mhm.
reorienting to the present. Thank you to each of you for spending these 2 hours on confusion, probably more time than you've ever had in your life thinking about this emotion. Um,
Mhm.
And for what it's worth, it's lovely to birth this very early alpha page that I've had in my mind for the last decade or more. It's lovely to offer this to all of you and bring it into Bridge Makers, partly because I'm really poor and I can't afford it on my own website, but also because
Mhm.
it has a home here, hopefully.
You know, I was gonna say it earlier, but it was never a good moment. But yeah, I opened up the whole thing that you're looking at. I was playing
Mhm.
around with it. Um, one piece of feedback, it's very trivial, but I don't like how when you're looking at the model, you go up and down. It's inverted on the y-axis, but it's not inverted on the x-axis.
Mm,
I,
okay.
and it does a weird perspective where like if you look up or down or left and right, the closer elements are like smaller than the farther away elements.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's throwing me off, like it's doing like an inverse of a perspective view,
Hmm.
and
Okay.
it's like it doesn't feel like a 3D like I'm used to in Unity or
Mhm.
VRChat or Blender. It's doing its own weird rendering thing.
Mm.
Um, and I'm not sure what it is, but it obviously gets the point across. But it's like I prefer to like if I pull down, it should pull the top closer to me, not the bottom. It feels
Mm.
like that inversion is just a preference. That you could probably even make it like a single checkbox. That would be nice.
Mm.
Um, a lot of video games will have that option. Uh,
Okay. Thank you for the feedback, and thank you, Scott. I hear you gotta go. Grateful for your time.
mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
I thanks, Scott. Take care. Oh,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, we're not gonna get a group photo because we're on here, but maybe
Hmm.
I'll take a little snapshot just to commemorate. It's a big deal that
Yeah.
it's a day of confusion, but also it's a day of release. You are all part of the launch of
There we
whatever
go.
the next
Mhm.
Yay.
Although
Oh,
that has name tags in it.
it does. It
Sweet.
does.
Oh wait, I can do it without. Hang on,
Blur it.
I can give it that one. If I don't have
Hmm.
the mouse over the UI, the
Oh,
names disappear.
that's great. There's our group photo. Yay. Well, thank you everybody. And please, we're dwindling here a bit with our hops. So I'm not sure what that means. I'm sitting comfortably in my confusion. But please share that we're doing this series with people in your life, and maybe we'll get more people for the next few weeks because there's
Mm.
going to be some interesting explorations. We've already done some of these before: confusion with music, confusion with videos, confusion with worlds. It's going to be quite an adventure.
Mhm.